All right, guys, I'm live. You know, I rarely ever do it. The reason I did it today, it's no big deal. If I get any attendees, I just leave it here as a video. I did it because I went through this. I went through my collection, and as you know, I've been collecting Golden Age. I found this, right? Aces High. You guys don't know anything about Aces High. EC Comics got into trouble with Seduction of the Innocent, SODI, which is the famous congressional hearings around comic books and their effects on children, right? So during that time, a not necessarily a law, but a self-governing body was created called the Comics Code Authority, and their job was to ensure that things such as Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and some of the other graphic comics that were coming around 1950s would be either tamed down or eliminated entirely. The easiest path was to eliminate them entirely, and they did. The biggest impact was laid on a company called EC Comics. If you don't know anything about EC, I've got another video on EC that goes through it. I got a couple of videos. Just look through my video list, you'll find EC, the history of EC, and some other stuff on EC. In any case, EC Comics was the leader in sci fi and horror at the time and crime. They actually came out of true crime in the 1940s and out of romance comics in the 1940s and developed into what was EC Comics, what they called the new trend. And that new trend was the horror, right? The horror was part of the what gave rise to SODI. Long story to tell you that as I'm going through my collection and I find this, which is one of EC's, this is the Comics Code Authority right here, one of EC's comic books from the 19, I think this must be 1955 because all of these were published, yep, June 1955. Very short lived. After the horror comics and sci fi comics were canceled, they went after things such as war, but more on the heroic side, not on the grit side. They went after things like westerns. They went after Roman pirates. I mean, they had an issue called piracy. They had another one called psychoanalysis. They had another one called MD. So they went after different categories. This one was called Aces High. They were all about 5 or 6 issues deep before everything got canceled. And the only thing EC ended up with and remained so until 2019, I think, or maybe 2020, was Mad Magazine. They created Mad and they stayed with Mad and they became a magazine company rather than a comic book company. And that way they could forego everything having to do with the Comics Code Authority, which was a self governing board built by the different comic book companies to guide comic book creators on what subjects were forbidden by Congress, or at least were implied to be forbidden by Congress. Anyway, why all this? Well, when I'm going through my collection, I find Aces High. Nice copy. It's got some writing on it. But then I look at the writing, and that's when it gets interesting. You know how people have pedigree collections? Well, guess what? This is my own pedigree. I just found a guy called Vance, and his last name is Teeters, I believe. He's out of Detroit, Michigan, and this was his address. And he went to a school called Eastern High School. So basically, if you're out there and your name is, oh, Zane, sorry, Zane Teeters. Zane Teeters, and you lived, I think it's on Woodley, 143 Woodley. I have your comic book, Detroit, Michigan. Interesting. Look how cool, guys. And actually, let me put it, he wrote it upside down. So you turn it like this, it might be easier to read. Once you write it on a comic book, folks, it becomes public information. It's kind of like putting it on Google. Sorry. So anyway, Aces High, but this is what's interesting, guys. This some of the stuff that comics give you is that little time machine back to 1955 when a young kid out of Eastern High School wrote his name. By the way, when I just opened it, here are examples of two of the other titles I was talking about: MD and psychoanalysis. You can get. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. That's it. Just wanted to give you this. I thought this was really cool. Thought you might like it.